Welcome to Vibrant Voices. I'm your host, Charles Allen. On today's show, we have filmmaker Tamara Hernandez. Yeah, welcome to the show, everyone. We have a special filmmaker today, Tamara Hernandez. I want to make sure I got her name right, and she's going to be talking about her short film and what inspired her to make this film, Alida. And we're just going to get into it. We're just going to talk about filmmaking, um, good things, what's good about filmmaking, and also what's bad about filmmaking.
hmm
So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Charles. I really appreciate it.
All right, you want to give our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I started film I started as I started off as a screenwriter. I was not a director. I wanted to be a writer since I was a little kid, and I started off with short stories and poems. And then after I graduated from UCLA, I started writing screenplays, and then I started optioning them and selling them. And then a producer said to me, uh, because he wanted me to, I was getting a lot of notes from producers that I didn't agree with. And mainly because I felt like they were like just not, I thought they were objectifying my gender and I wasn't going to do it. So they were saying I was difficult. I'm like, I'm not going to contribute to the objectification of my gender. It's already we're already objectified enough. I'm not going to add to it. And so I was being called like difficult. This one producer said, if you want to get something made, why don't you just, direct it a short film yourself? And if it's good, I'll finance it. So I never thought about directing before that. So I wrote a movie that would take place in my bedroom, easy, one location. And the first shot, it was just an insert shot. It's the opening credit. And after I said cut, I'm like, it was just like this glove. It was just like, this is who I am. Like this, it just fit in a way I can't really describe. And I just never stopped after that. I mean, I took some breaks because I've had kids and I had to take breaks having kids, but
Okay, cool. Cool. So let's go back one step. You
Mhm.
talked about you started as a writer before you
Yeah.
became a director, right? So what led you to be wanted to be a writer, and specifically you wanted to write about screenplays, am I correct?
Yeah. Well, I love movies. So, just being, growing up in America, you're just like movies, movies, movies. And so I just thought I want to write movies. Um, Plus, I have a little bit of a short attention span, so I think movies as opposed to novels was something that, even though I was an English major, I just gravitated towards film. Um, but when I was a kid, yeah, I was just always wanting to write. My first poem I ever wrote was to my grandmother, uh, and I was like 4 or 5 years old. I remember handing it to her. Um, yeah.
Was was there a specific, like, say, like you saw this you saw this movie or you read a book and you say, you know what? Let me try that. Was there any, did you get that moment was like, because you talked about that previously where you felt like once you did that, your movie, it felt like a glove.
Directing, yeah,
Right.
directing.
That's
Like,
directing, but like for like writing scripts, do you like something, did something inspire you? Did you see like a film and you say, wow, you know what? I want to write something like
was
that.
it a particular movie? I always loved musicals. I mean, I just watched a lot of things. I was, in front of the TV all the time.
Okay.
So I don't know. It was just so many things. I don't know one particular thing. I do love the movie Cabaret.
Uh-huh.
If you have you seen Cabaret?
I have seen Cabaret with
Yeah, that's one of
Liza
my
Minnelli,
favorite
right? Is the
musicals.
one are we talking the one with Liza Minnelli?
Yes.
Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
I have
yeah.
seen it. Yes, yes,
So
yes.
yeah, so that's one of my favorite musicals. I don't know. I don't have one particular film though. Yeah, I don't know.
Like for some people, like for me, for example, right? I remember seeing a movie years ago with my dad, right? And it was called,
Mhm.
I think it was a movie with, what's his name? Oh God, I'm fighting it. I don't know why I can't remember his name. He's a big action star, Clint Eastwood, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And it was Clint Eastwood, and they were going to somewhere in Germany. It was a World War II. We're angels there, right? I
Hmm.
remember seeing this with my dad, and for some moment, I didn't spend much time growing up with my dad, but when we went and we saw this movie, it was just like this bonding moment. I was just like, wow, I have a mind like making films, right? I have a
Hmm.
mind like being director. And for me, just that moment inside seeing this film with my dad was wanting me to make films. That's when the spark in my mind, you know,
Right.
I started to say, okay, I
Click.
can do this. I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
do this.
yeah.
I can create moments for people, right? Because I had a moment for my dad. So I'd be like, wow, it'd be great to create these type of moments for people, right? Because I
Hmm.
experienced something
Hmm.
kind of really great. And so that's what inspired me to start writing, directing, and
I
producing. And then the next film was I saw Star Wars, right? And I was
Yeah.
as a kid, and I was like, wow, this is really amazing. And so that sort of kicked it in gear for me, and I sort of never looked back ever since. So that's why I was trying to like that's why I asked you that sort of questions because I know I
Right.
spoke to
Yeah, I think for me, like I think also being female, there weren't any female filmmakers, directors. So I didn't even imagine to do something like that.
Mhm,
I just thought I'm just writing so much all the time
mhm.
because I had so much coming out of me that I just thought of myself as a writer. And it wasn't till that particular producer said, you need to just do this yourself, that I did it.
Okay, cool. So now you got to that point. You shot the film. The producer tell you to go ahead and make that film. What was
Hmm.
what was that experience like? Did you get a crew? Did you meet with the actors? What was the rehearsal process? What was the whole putting the whole thing together? What was that process like for you?
So it was small. There's only three actors. Um, I got a, I got the crew from us. So this particular producer had optioned some of my screenplays, and he had optioned another filmmaker screenplays, and he had to decide who he was going to give money to make a feature, and he gave it to him.
Mm.
So I became that director's assistant, even though we were the same age.
What was that like?
We were in our 20s. Um, he felt weird asking me to do anything for him because we were like writers and now suddenly I'm working for him. And he told me, he goes, I feel weird asking you to do anything for me. So I think I only got him coffee two times. And then I would drive him to and from the set, and I'd drive the actors to and from the set. But I'm a very bad driver. So it was really not a good decision because we almost got in a big car accident.
Okay, so
I
let me
almost
ask you
killed
this.
everybody in the
Oh
movie,
no, oh no. So let me
including
ask you this.
myself.
Let me ask you this question then. I mean, at the beginning of the show, you talked about you didn't want to, your gender was very important. You wanted to make sure you had a good representation of your gender. So now
Yeah,
you have this, the guy chose a male, uh,
yeah,
and then he asks you, then you become his assistant.
yeah.
In the back of your mind, did you think because I was a female, he get chosen, or did you think his script was a better script?
Um, I just thought he's more Hollywood than me. Like
Mm,
he's already connected and had like famous friends. There were a lot of famous people in that movie. And I'm just like, I was just like a girl who grew up on a dirt road in Bakersfield. I didn't have any of those connections. So I was just like, okay, I'd never been on a movie set before. So I'm like, okay, I'll just watch and see, what you do. And then I'll make my film after that and we'll see if it's any good. So I was just like a fly on the wall, just hanging out. But I hung out with the crew, and that crew all came to work on my film for free. Um, and that's how I got my first film made. So I didn't really begrudge him for it. Um, I just felt like I'm not connected like that. Like there's no way I could get like these famous stars in my
Okay, gotcha.
movie like he did.
All
Yeah.
right, cool, cool. So now you got the experience. You did your film. You got it in the can. Did you decide
That
to
was a
put it in
different
fest?
film. That was a different film I got into Cannes. That wasn't the first one.
Okay,
That was the I made another. So after I made that film, I made another one, and then I made all these in my house, by the way.
really.
I made all different sorts of movies in different parts of my house.
Uh-huh.
But I made another two films the same weekend, one on Saturday, one on Sunday.
Wow.
And they both got into Sundance, and one of them got into Cannes. Um, and that's the one that helped me finance my feature.
Okay, okay. So it seemed that you had like a from that one initial film that the director I mean the producer tell you to go ahead and do it yourself
Hmm.
to making the second film. It seemed that was it easier after the first film or you know did you
The first film was easier than the second film because the second film I was like, okay, I got one in my bedroom. Now I'm going to do a bigger one. I'm going to have a car scene and this scene, and then that one was too crazy. So then the next two I tailored down, and they were successful. Because I think it's all about like when you don't have a lot of money, like being industrious with your budget and not being too ambitious.
Mhm.
The second one, I was a little too ambitious. I had like multiple, yeah, I went kind of overboard.
Okay, so what I want to get from you, so I can share with my audience, especially because a lot of filmmakers listen to this podcast.
Hmm.
Did you once you start like maybe on your third, did you start to find a voice? Did you decided that you as a creative person, I want to go in a specific direction. I want a certain type of lighting. I want my actors to perform a certain type of way. I'm looking for this type of
Hmm.
camera movement. I can say like, I want to be like a Martin Scorsese, I want to be a Spielberg, any artist, Francis Ford Coppola. Did you start to form a style?
Um, oddly enough, because I was a writer for so long beforehand, I already had a style from my writing. It already had a voice. So probably started when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Um, so I didn't, I just kind of visually speaking, I just, when I'm writing, I'm already picturing the movie. So I just shot list and storyboard based on what I see in my head. So I'm not really thinking about other filmmakers. I'm just trying to get out the feeling that's all bottled up inside me, just get it out.
Mhm.
So it's
Would
not inside me anymore. That's my goal.
would you do you have a like could you describe your style? How would you describe your style then?
Um, well, m all my movies are very female centric. I don't make I made one film with a male lead, but he was also a drag queen. So I'm really focused on the female point of view, and I think it's also very like raw. People like my characters will say things that you really have always wanted to say, but you would never say. Those kinds of things. Well, nowadays people say everything. So it's like it does, like everyone's going crazy nowadays.
True, true.
But like all the stuff that you just, you know, uh, anger, shame, like humiliation, like just those horrifying moments you have alone and just might feel like, you know, terrible about yourself or really hurt or broken or things like that. Like I explore things like I explore those kinds of things, misfits, people who are misunderstood, um, and or just like oddball characters. Yeah.
Do you feel that a lot of people connect with those type of characters, and do you get like feedback saying, "Oh wow, this is really, this is something I'm thinking about, and I wish I could say it," and your characters actually say what I'm thinking. How's your feedback from like say audience of your work?
It's usually like two different. Some people do say that. And like I've had one time this one lady said, "Oh, I don't feel so alone in the world anymore." And I'm like, "I made this movie for you." Like that was what I was doing it for people who, don't feel like they fit in. But other people, usually men, I would say, not to, be too I don't know, just I don't want to beat up on men or anything. That's not the point. But a lot of them I've had men not like some of the stuff I put out there.
Like you saying you don't want to beat up
Maybe
men.
get a little offended. I don't know if they're offended. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Like I've had men come to my screenings, because like maybe they think I would date them or something if they came to my movie. But then after they see the movie, they walk out and don't talk to me anymore. So it's actually, helpful.
I mean, all right, so it's not like
Am I answering your question?
yes, yes you are. I mean, but it's not like saying, "Oh, I'm beating man." I mean, it's like, okay, this is my point of view, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's up to audience to like accept it and debate it, It's
It's
not to
pretty
be angry.
strong.
Hmm.
It's pretty strong. It can be very dividing. Although I think now that I'm coming back to filmmaking after being a mom, being married, divorced, single parent, I started a company and I did all these other things. Um, I don't think my films are as, polarizing as they were because I feel like I'm not as angry as I was when I was younger. I was an angry young woman.
Okay.
Now I'm just like, eh, just
Yeah, now you're much
I'm
more mellow.
I'm
Okay.
I'm more mellow. I'm more like, it's just the way it is, kind of accepting, but also still talking about it, but not being as like punk rock and just like in your face with the issues that I was addressing earlier.
Okay, so it seems that you had a little bit of traction in Hollywood, right? So I want to get to that, but I also want to go back to like, is it your second film or third film that you got into Cannes? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, it was a third. I was 26 and I felt like it was pretty overwhelming. I remember just feeling like, wow, it's such a big world. And there was just so many filmmakers from all over the world, and I was just like in awe. And just watching everybody's films and just like, wow, cinema is so much bigger. I think in America, especially back then, I'd seen a lot of foreign films. I love foreign movies, but it was just it's so expansive and huge. Um, and the festival was great. They were really nice. I had a great time there. They're very supportive and catering to the filmmakers and yeah, they take you to parties and feed you. Everyone loves to get fed.
That's true. That's true. So what was the subject matter of the film? What was the story about?
Oh, that film was called The Slap, and it takes place in the 1950s, and it's about a girl who a guy's driving her home, and he tries to kiss her goodnight, and she's like, "Okay, but I'll kiss you goodnight, but first you have to slap me in the face." And he's like, "No, I'm not going to do that." And she's like, "Why not?"
That's an interesting.
And basically she talks him into it
Uh,
after, some debating. And at the end of the movie, you see he's a different person. He was innocent in the beginning, and 5 minutes later, he's not the same guy anymore.
so I'm just curious now, as a person who's listening to this, and the person who's interviewed, what was the statement? What were you trying to say in that particular movie about the slap?
It's just about, I felt like her character, she's very beautiful, very objectified. He was just looking at her like this is some girl, I want to have sex with. And that's what she is to me, for me. And in her mind, she's like, I'm going to destroy him.
That is an interesting way about going about that because yeah, yeah, it's a very interesting way the character would take to bring him down and let him see that she's a human being, right? Just like
Right.
I think that's the goal here,
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah.
I'm not to be put up. Yeah, well, that's an interesting and all right, so you have stated yeah, I'm trying to put you have stated that you got accepted into Sundance and stuff and Cannes. Did you feel after all these accolades and your film getting in that you were the next big thing, that you were gonna blow Hollywood wide open and you were gonna be the female director?
No. You know what was because then I made my feature and
Hmm.
I won South by Southwest. And I had an agent who was at CAA. I had all this stuff, but it was very difficult back then. People, it was very difficult for women to get hired as, writer and directors. It was hard. It's easier now. But it was very hard. It was, yeah, it's like you weren't wanted, really. And it's very different than it is now. Like the Me Too movement changed that. When the Me Too movement came, I thought, oh, maybe there's a chance for me to come back now. But before then, it's kind of like they don't really want you around. It's a feeling, it's a kind of a feeling like, yeah, like I could give
Yeah,
you a lot of examples, but
uh-huh.
it's
But
just, yeah.
like people hear that Hollywood is about money, that it's not about racism, it's not about sexism. If they believe they can make money off of you, then you're golden, right?
Hmm.
And so I'm thinking, well,
Well, I wasn't that kind of person. I wasn't like big Hollywood movies.
mhm.
I was indie. So I was making quirky stuff, like, about well, my feature, Men Cry Bullets, was about a boy who dressed up like a girl who gets raped by a woman and then falls in love with her, and they have a domestic violence kind of relationship. It's not commercial.
So you didn't see
It's not
yourself as
Jaws.
true, true. Yeah, it's far from Jaws. So you didn't see yourself as a commercial, like wanting to do like Star Wars, wanted to be a blockbuster type of director.
I wasn't interested in it, and I didn't even know how to think that way. I think now that I'm older, I do think that way. Like a lot of projects I'm doing now are much more commercial. They're very actually very commercial. But I think being young, I had so many layers of just things that had happened to me that I was just going through like I was using filmmaking as kind of therapy. You know, I wasn't really thinking of it as a business. You know, I wasn't thinking of it as a career even. To me, it was just like art. I'm just doing art, art, art. You know, so it was, I wasn't really like that, when I was young. Um,
Okay,
It'd have
so
been great if I had been a little smarter.
I mean, even with with your agent and everything, no one sort of direct you and like say, "Hey, you know what, Tara, I think this is a way for you to go. You can make some money." Didn't they try to seduce you into making money for them? Then like your agent, like, that 15% of your earnings will really go well for me. I can buy my house in Malibu. So I think this would be a good idea if you would
I,
do it this
you
way.
know what? I think what I've learned, whoops, my thing's falling, is managers are more like that, and
Mhm.
agents aren't. Agents are very hands off. They're just kind of like you have to generate a lot of stuff on your own.
Mm.
Whereas managers are more going to help cultivate your career. Yeah, so that was something, that I didn't have a manager. And I was just figuring everything out. I didn't have any connections in Hollywood. I didn't, so it was just kind of fumbling around, learning, the hard way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Okay, so I think I'm trying to speak to you so my audience can get a sense of like an independent woman in Hollywood, like when you started, because you started in your 20s, you went to UCLA, you got your, was it a master's degree that you in
No, I
writing?
just I just got a BA in English literature.
Okay. And there's a sense because it's Hollywood have this myth about it. It's a lot of people still, although the industry is not like old Hollywood. You could be Hollywood in Montana, really. I mean, if
Hmm.
like just like how we're doing the Zoom, and so you could be anywhere in the world and you can still, because I did a film like a year or so ago, and my most of my actors were Mexico, and we did a rehearsal over Zoom, right? So
Hmm.
you don't necessarily have to be in Hollywood, but it still have that allure. The word Hollywood still have that
Yeah, yeah.
allure, it still have that,
Hmm.
oh wow, I want, and so I wanted to give the audience a true sense of, what lived experience is like. And I think talking to you, sharing your lived experience can help shine, not a big light, but,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, I mean, I feel like for me, I'm kind of an oddball. I'm not like, the average normal person. Don't know. I don't know. But I was very like I felt very shy, going to parties and doing all that stuff. The other part that you have to do as a filmmaker, networking,
Mhm.
hugely important. I was very shy because I just thought of myself as a writer. I didn't think I'd have to interact with a lot of people. I just thought I'd write my scripts, turn them in, get some money, and I wouldn't have to be out and about. So, now that I'm older, I was a school principal, actually. Uh, I started a school and became a school principal before coming back to filmmaking and doing all of that, starting companies and just doing all these things that I did in between really got me out of that shell. I had to, in order to make my companies, survive. But at being very young, I was so shy and it was very hard for me to do that.
It's just you just dropped a little interesting nugget there in this conversation. So you see, you became a school principal.
Hmm.
What led you down that road?
Well, I started a children's educational production company because we needed money, basically. And I saw and I had babies and I saw like a hole in the market. I'm like, I see all this product, but it I could make it like at a higher level. And I know what moms want. I know what kids want. And so I started that and I started making money from that. And I got really into languages and I wanted my kids to learn Spanish and Chinese.
Hmm.
And, I think those are really two very important languages. And I ended up, there's a lot more to this story, but I ended up starting my own school that's teaches kids starting at 4 years old Chinese, Spanish, and English every single day. It's a trilingual school. And then we also do filmmaking and we make films in Chinese and Spanish and English and um, so I was also the film teacher. Of course, I had to put a film program in.
Is it still in existence today, or
Yeah.
okay?
Unfortunately, they only make films one semester a year because I'm not the film teacher anymore. But they're still doing the film program, but they do a theater film program combo. We were making films every week. It was so fun because
And is it in
kids are
LA?
hilarious. They make hilarious movies.
And it's in LA, correct?
Yeah, it's in Monrovia. The school's in
Monrovia. Okay.
Monrovia.
All right. So my question to you now is like, you're back, you're a little wiser, a little older, right? What's your take now? Because you say you're much more free. You feel like you're much more freer, and you see the industry a little bit more clear with the Me Too
Hmm.
movement. It's a sense of a breath of fresh air, I suppose. And it's not this, you can say and do what you want now. Do you feel that now is the time for you to, I don't know, become that? What does the industry look like for you like today?
Well, I mean, the industry changed so much. So when I started making films again, I needed my school to get big enough to get someone to take it over for me before I could leave. Um, so when I came back and I started making movies, it was really kind of like Rumpelstiltskin kind of thing. Like I woke up and was like, oh my God, everything changed. Everything. You used to be able to make movies so cheap, and now it's just like people charge a lot of money. And so that was different from the independent filmmaking point, perspective. From my like career plan perspective, um, I'm really interested now in television. I was interested in TV before, but it just wasn't something that I was, getting hired for. Um, but I don't know. Am I answering your question? Like again, I'm already like losing my train of thought.
It's just like how do
ADHD.
you feel now, coming back and focusing, you've done other things.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you want to focus on filmmaking
Well, I
specifically.
do. Yeah, I want to make films. I have a couple. One is like Adelaide. It's like a longer expansion of that story. Shot in Nicaragua. Uh, and and then another is a TV show based on another film I made after I made Adelaida. And so I'm pitching that now.
Okay, so let's talk about Adelaida because that's how I come to meet you through
Hmm.
through that through that film. And I know from talking to you, you said that was based off of a true story about your grandmother, correct?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
you want to share with our audience, putting that whole film together, the short, and then what the experience have been like with the short, taking it to different festivals.
Um, okay, so the story is about, so my grandmother, um, about 20 years ago, I was just like, I just had like this idea pop into my head. You got to interview your grandma. She was 103 years old.
Mm.
So I interviewed her and I said, tell me some stories about Nicaragua. Just it's just like a family kind of recording of oral history. Um, First thing out of her mouth, I never wanted to marry your grandfather. I was actually in love with this other guy, and she goes on and on and on about how great he was. And this is a story I didn't know. So, the Adelaide is about the day she's forced to get married to my grandfather. And we shot it on the farm where she was married, where she lived with her husband, had her 9 kids in the jungle that my father owned. And my father passed away 2 years ago, and I inherited the jungle with the monkeys in it. So we shot there, and then we also shot in the church that my great grandfather built, where she got married. So my actress was standing in the same place she was standing when she was forced to marry my grandfather. And I just, that movie's so different than what I usually do because I usually do kind of, dark comedies and like kind of weird, odd movies. And that one is very much like a thriller and very cinematic. Like I wanted to do something with almost no dialogue and just tell a story visually. So that was a challenge because you have to get so much more coverage when you don't have dialogue. But going through the festivals, uh, it's different than it was before because there's so many more films and it used to be less political than it is now. It used to be just, I think because there were less movies and maybe because it wasn't, yeah, is it wasn't as like about like I don't know. It was just different, you
Do,
know?
so you're saying there's more movie. Do you think back then when you say like let's say in your early 20s, do you think the quality were better back then compared to now in terms of like films? Yeah, there are more, but
Mm,
is the quality there? Is it,
hmm.
you know,
Right.
what's your view on that? Is
Um,
quantity more than quality? I don't know.
I would say some films that I see are way better than they were. And I think the people making them are just much more savvy. They're much more educated. We were kind of, when I was young, everyone was just kind of, it was, independent films heyday and everyone was just kind of like run and gun. Like look at, like a movie like Clerks, it's not a polished looking film. We were just like, everything was very raw back then and just kind of like in the moment and how you're feeling in the moment. And I think now I'm seeing films that are very planned and executed in a much more polished way. And then there's a lot of, just a lot of different kinds of movies. Like I've seen a lot of movies. Yeah, like I don't understand the movie. And so, but they're also from all over the world too. So, I'm just like, it just peeks into different cultures and just different worlds. So there's a lot because so many more people are making movies. You're getting to see so much more, just like the internet, you're seeing so much more information and so many more perspectives. So it's interesting. Yeah, I
Okay.
saw one film at a festival and it was just like a shot on a phone, but it was so many shots inside the shots. And I was like, huh, I never like thought of that. But it was very, just kind of like a grunge kind of way to shoot it. And it wasn't a story at all, like didn't have a beginning, middle, and end. But I kept thinking about that one movie. more than other movies. It had a real impression on me. So yeah, I don't know. There's
I
just
know, I know,
yeah.
like some of my friends actually said to me, with digital, and everybody believing that they can, make a movie because they believe it's cheap, and the whole thing, you have Hollywood in your back pocket, meaning that you have Hollywood on your phone. You can edit, you can shoot, you can do it all on your phone, right? And a lot of folks saying to me, but these are older, older filmmakers. It's like they sort of flood the market, right?
Hmm.
And it sort of take away this allure, right? Because Hollywood is not what Hollywood is. It's more like, if you got a phone, go ahead and shoot a movie. And so you have a lot of content out of there, which drowns out like creative voices.
Mm,
They say find it hard for creative voices now to float to the top because
mm.
you have so much material out there. Whether it's good or bad, there's a lot of material out there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not for me to judge, right? If it's good or bad, but there's a lot of material that they would say. There's a lot of material out there, and it's very hard to establish as a filmmaker now, because you look back, back in I think 80s or the 90s when you had like sex slides and videotapes, people come out, you had
Hmm.
like Spike Lee, she have to have it, and people started a career. You don't really see that. I mean, you can win
Yeah.
Sundance, like who you gonna if I can ask you is like who won Sundance last year and where's that person? Who won Sundance 2 years ago and where's that person? Who had the
Hmm.
best feature, whatever. But back in the days, I think such slides and videotapes came out of Sundance. Am I correct?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that really put the director into the stratosphere, right? He went on
Right.
and still works. But today, because there's so much quality, it's so much not quality, but so much quantity
Yeah.
that it's hard for that type of career to happen. What do you think about that?
Yeah,
That
I think that's you're spot on there. Yeah, that's I would agree with that. Um yeah, I was talking to my DP and 'cause he works a lot. He's always shooting something and I'm just, and he works with a lot of independent filmmakers. And he tells me all sorts of stories like this guy's cutting this thing in his, you know, basement. He lives with his parents for 2 years, and he's almost 50. He tells me a lot of stories like this. And I just kind of feel like, you know what? Life is short and it's like you got to do it because it's just like art. And you can't think about the career part. If the career is going to happen, it's going to happen. And just like if you got this story, just tell it because we're only here for like this long. Just do it, you
true,
know?
true. I totally agree with that. So let's get one before we wrap. Let's talk about Adeline. So that short about your grandmother, you say you're thinking of turning it into a feature, correct?
Yeah. Well, because, in Nicaragua, there's I mean, there's a lot going on in Nicaragua that people don't know about. I mean, there has been a little bit of a few films about the history, but I want to do a film that I have a pretty crazy Nicaraguan family. where There's all sorts of drama always going on. They're hilarious. They could be their own novella, and it's like I want to do a combination of the history and my family, because they went through, the whole war, and part of the family was Sandinista and the other part went Contra and and all that stuff. And it was around the time when my grandmother was young. So I want to kind of combine her story, other family members, and the history of Nicaragua and put it together in a movie. Um, yeah. So it is such
Yeah,
a
that's cool. This is a great spot where we can like sort of end the interview. So if people wanted to get in touch or want to see any of your work or projects, how can they do that?
They could just go to my website. It's tamarahernandezdirector.com. I'm also on Instagram, but if you go to the website, you can watch a lot of the movies. Some of them are passcode because they're still going in the festivals or they're just starting to. Because I just finished two more since Adelaida.
Hmm.
But you can look at some of my crazy stuff that I've made.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. So I usually ask like all of my guests, especially filmmakers, right? What advice would you give based off of your experience? What advice would you give anyone who's thinking of trying to break into this industry?
I would say write a short film, do it small, and then after that, you feel comfortable and ready, do a feature. But try not to use your own money on the feature, okay? Because you're going to be broke for many, many years if you do that.
Great advice, actually. Great advice. Because I still owe some money to some
Yeah.
people. Great, great advice. So I want to thank you for coming on the show. This was a great
No, thank you for having me. It was fun. It's fun
this was
talking to you.
this was a great conversation, and I look forward to seeing more of your work and seeing your television stuff. And this was great. This was great.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Charles. Thank
All
you.
right. This podcast has been brought to you by the 2026 edition of Our Vision Caribbean and Latino Film Festival, now accepting projects on Film Freeway.